What, if any, is the next move that the New Orleans Saints should make with their quarterback position? I think that a lot of people would agree that Taysom Hill has provided a huge spark for that offense, a huge spark for the franchise, and what he has been able to do as a versatile player on the field. But what does that really mean for Drew Brees? And I mean, and this is a hard topic for me because I'm a Purdue alum and Drew Brees is a Purdue guy, and he has played at a consistently high elite level through the course of his career in New Orleans. But I think that we have, in this game in this wild card game that they lost to the Minnesota Vikings, we have seen maybe a few chinks in that armor that Drew Brees has had as an elite level quarterback for so long. He fumbled the ball late in the game when they were trying to go ahead. He threw that interception. I believe it was before the half. Two crucial mistakes that at the end of the day may have cost them that win outside of, the, I guess, flappable complaint that the Saints could have about offensive pass interference in overtime. There are, you can point the finger to a few things that happened with Drew Brees at that quarterback position that really did affect New Orleans' ability to be productive on offense against Minnesota. But also you can point to some of the things that Taysom Hill did at the quarterback position and outside at the receiver spot that also were huge uplifters for the Saints. So I think that puts New Orleans in a bit of a dilemma right now as to who is the future of that franchise going to be behind. And I think that there's not really a clear answer either because, I don't necessarily think that Drew Brees is at a point where you can really look and say that he's not the quarterback that he was. But at the same time, how many years in a row is New Orleans going to go into the playoffs with these lofty expectations of making it back to the Super Bowl? We're now 10 years removed from that, and we haven't seen any progress really to get to justify that they shouldn't be at least thinking about what to do after Drew Brees. What do you think?
I think so much of this revolves around Drew Brees. And, again, I hate to go back and draw parallels to Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, but at the end of the day, even if you look at the Andrew Luck scenario, we've learned this year, the team has to know. The team has to know the next step. I get it. The dream was that they were going to go to the Patriots with Brees, Kamara, Michael Thomas, one of the best, if not it really becoming one of the best receivers in the game, period. And then obviously you have him have this elaborate send-off, walks off the field, retires, then you build into next year. The problem is we just don't know where Drew Brees is. Is he going to want to continue to put in the work? And is this going to be something that maybe when camp rolls around, he doesn't feel 100% committed? Now, we've never seen that from him in the past, but he's never been in this position.
His work ethic is legendary from what we all know.
But with failures, does it stay at that same level? And you have a very unique scenario here where, like you said, you've got Hill, who's almost like a Swiss Army knife of a quarterback that I don't know that you're going to really be able to make that franchise guy. He's very versatile, but can he be the leader? Then you've also got Teddy Bridgewater, which, listen, like it or not, Teddy Bridgewater stepped up big time when they needed him this year. I think you're in a position where you literally have to look into at least keeping them both.
But I think Teddy Bridgewater's out there. I think he's going to go somewhere and get paid to be a starter.
New England.
I think that, and there you go. We didn't even think about that. He could be a prime candidate as a free agent signing for New England. I mean, there are going to be a lot of teams that are taking strong looks at him. Look at Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is another team that could look at him and say, hey, this guy can uplift our franchise. So, Teddy Bridgewater is not going to be in New Orleans this time next year. He's going to be looking to get that big payday, which he will get because he proved that with a solid core around him, he can play with the best of them. And the guy is he's shown he can be a good game manager. At the same time, he can make the throws down the field that you need from a big time quarterback. So, he can thank New Orleans for the revitalization of his career. because it is definitely going to lead to a huge payday for him.
I don't know for sure. I think if people go back and look at his past failures, that's going to be a big problem to overcome. And
they got short. The NFL GMs and NFL owners have short memories. They're going to look at what he did, going 5-6-0 with the New Orleans Saints at the quarterback position, and not just through game management. The guy made plays. He made throws. He limited his mistakes. These are things that we didn't see from him earlier in his career. Even though, and I'm saying earlier in his career, post injury. Before his injury in Minnesota, he was playing at a decently high level. But post injury, we saw a loss in confidence. We saw a loss in big playability. We saw a loss in mobility, and things just didn't work out for him necessarily as well. But I do think that it's a short memory in this league. I mean, let's not forget Ryan Tannehill got paid $118 million, and he didn't even make a playoff game, much less go on a 5 or 6 game win streak. So and look at where he's at now. His career has been totally revived out in Tennessee. So I think that this guy is going to get paid big based on what he did in his time as the starter in New Orleans, because that was crucial to them being able to maintain a successful season.
I don't know that we've ever seen a scenario like this. I mean, listen, for all intents and purposes, at least from the Viking standpoint, Teddy Bridgewater was a bust. He went to the Jets, was essentially a practice squad player, and then found himself in a very, very good system with, you could argue an elite running back in Kamara, and you can't argue an elite wide receiver there with him. And I don't know how much a team is going to look at that and say, we have those pieces here. We have the elite, wide receiver. We have an above average running back. And to his point, Teddy Bridgewater, I mean, this is a guy that literally knows last year he was out of the league. I mean, he was a Jet practice squad member. You're on the cusp of not having a career. Do you not think that maybe he sits back and reflects himself and says, hey, listen, maybe I can take another big payday and get out with what I have and risk 1 year and being cut? Or can I stay here? Drew Brees restructures, which I think is the first part of all this. He has to find some way to restructure this contract, and then maybe keep all 3 pieces and try to build toward a future. To me, it's hard when you look at the Saints to think that Teddy Bridgewater is the future. It's even harder to think that Hill is the future, just because personally, I see the way Hill plays. I don't think they're going to be able to do that as him being the starter. Is it great to have him come in as a kind of special contributor? Sure. Is it nice to have that dual threat? Absolutely. But when he's your franchise quarterback, when he is the man and he gets hurt running a ball in or going out as a receiver, you're in a totally different scenario from your fan base. Your fan base doesn't want to see that. They want to see the marquee, the face, the leader be protected. And you can't, I mean, that's a reason Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Brett Favre, you name them. There's a reason they weren't lining up as a wide receiver. Sure, they didn't have the same skill set that Hill does, but they also weren't putting them in those positions to be hurt, because I'm sure you know this very well. You have a defense looking over at a quarterback lined up as a receiver. They're probably thinking, here's my chance to get even, not, well, let's worry about him catching the ball.
Put him out of the game. No, you're right. But at the same time, I think you look at a guy like Sean Payton, who is probably, I would consider probably the most innovative head coach in the league as far as game plan and scheming to get the most out of his offense. I don't think there's going to be a scenario where, if let's speak in hypothetical, that Taysom Hill takes over as the starting quarterback for the New Orleans Saints. He's not going to have this guy out at wide receiver. He's out at wide receiver now because that's a function that he can use to get more value out of him as a player on the field. And he knows it throws a monkey wrench into the defensive game planning of the teams that they face. But as the starting quarterback, this guy would be sitting in the same. This would be I could envision this being a Baltimore Ravens-esque style offense where you're focusing on, a read option based offense that puts defenses in binds, has them continuously having to check for a quarterback that can beat them with his legs, while at the same time having to defend an all-time great at wide receiver and having to take on a running game that now becomes more expansive because of that read option. So you're really looking at a situation where it makes this offense even more of a threat than it is with Drew Brees. It makes this offense more explosive than it is with Drew Brees. And at the end of the day, we don't need him to throw the ball like Drew Brees. We just need him to manage his throws and not make mistakes and don't sink the ship. But when you have a guy like Mike Thomas out there on the edge, when you have a guy like Ted Ginn Jr. out there, Ted Ginn Jr. is still with the Saints, right? He's Saints. When you have a guy like Ted Ginn Jr. out there who can stretch the field, now, your offense is twice as dynamic and twice as dangerous. And I think at the end of the day, with a guy like Sean Payton, who does have that kind of mad scientist persona and how he can innovate an offense, it just makes that team that much more of a threat. And maybe that's what gets them over the hump. Maybe that's what gets them back to the Super Bowl, is having a guy like that in their offense. We can see a kind of changing in the guard throughout the NFL right now. The league is moving more towards quarterbacks who can provide dual threats to defenses. And those quarterbacks on all of these teams who are those dual threat kinds of quarterbacks, those are the teams that are having the most success in the NFL. Those are the teams that are being picked as favorites in the playoffs right now over the conventional drop back pocket passer. So maybe it is time. Maybe it is time for the NFL, or maybe it is time for the Saints to start considering that that is the next trend of the league and start moving towards a guy like Taysom Hill. I think that really would be something that would be a bold move to make, but at the same time, it could be the move that keeps your franchise up to date with where the league is going. And maybe it's a blessing in disguise for a guy like Drew Brees, because maybe now you have a Bill Belichick that comes knocking on the door and says, hey, come to New England, let's win some Super Bowls together. And I can't imagine that Bill Belichick wouldn't be salivating for an opportunity with a guy like Drew Brees, even more so maybe than a guy like Tom Brady.